The Dream of the Rood is an Anglo-Saxon poem composed in the 8th century. It's an allegorical poem in which the speaker has a dream about a cross, the cross of Christ. In the dream, the cross starts speaking to the speaker and talks about his sacrifice and about his suffering. Later on, the cross explains how it was transformed from a tree into a symbol of salvation. The dream is a metaphor for the Christian faith and how it offers hope and redemption through the suffering of Christ. The poem is both a religious and a literary masterpiece, demonstrating the power of faith and the beauty of language. It is a vivid and powerful exploration of the nature of faith and the power of sacrifice. Anglo-Saxon religious poems had no known authors because they were composed orally and passed down through generations by word of mouth. This meant that any changes to the poem were not recorded and the original authors were unknown. This is why many religious poems of the time have been lost over the centuries, with the original authors remaining unknown. In an article, Emily Thornberry links the poem to 3 relics from the Middle Ages, namely the Ruthwell Cross, the Brussels Cross, and the Vercelli Book. These objects all contain fragments from the Dream of the Rood. They are of significant importance to the poem because they question the idea of Anglo-Saxon poetry itself, in that it is nearly impossible to determine the origins of the Dream of the Rood. I've got Thijs Vollers with me, an archaeologist who discovered the Ruthwell Cross. Thijs, can you tell me something about the cross?
Almost certainly. The Ruthwell Cross is a large stone Anglo-Saxon monument located in the parish of Ruthwell in Scotland. It is believed to have been erected somewhere in the 7th or 8th century AD and is thought to commemorate the great Anglo-Saxon king, Alfred the Great. The monument itself features a Latin text from the Dream of the Rood, the poem, believed to be the oldest surviving example of Anglo-Saxon poetry. However, only 15 lines of verse were recovered after the cross had been partly destroyed. It also depicts Christian saints and scenes from the life of Christ. The Ruthwell Cross might look like a stone monument, but it was more than just an artwork. The cross had a communal purpose. It was meant to be used as a place for people to gather together and listen to oral poetry. The cross also appears to have a very local character, illustrated in the dialect in which the poem is written and the way in which the runes are inscribed.
The monument is also located at a fair distance from any major towns and settlements, further supporting the argument that the influence of the monument might have been restricted to quite a small area. The argument of this local character can also be disproven. When looking at the contents of the poem itself, the original poem seems to have a wider influence in Anglo-Saxon oral culture, since the poem of the dream travelled around from one community to another and appeared in several cultural contexts. Looking at the cross itself, it combines the familiarity of runes and Old English verse with the unfamiliar shape of a stone monument carved in a foreign style.
Besides the Ruthwell Cross, Emily Thornberry also discusses the Brussels Cross in her article. And today I've got historian Seppe Manderick with me, who did some research about this cross. Good morning, Seppe. Can you tell me something about the cross?
Good morning. Of course I can. Well, just like the Ruthwell Cross, the Brussels Cross serves the same purpose as a communal relic. The difference, however, lies in the context in which it is used. The Ruthwell Cross was an object that serves to orally transmit the poem of the dream, while the Brussels Cross has a more religious goal, serving as a liturgical object in the church. It would have actively participated as a processional cross during major rites.
The Brussels cross is a large piece of cross-shaped wood covered with a silver plate containing medallions with the evangelist symbols and several gems. However, the cross is badly damaged and has a big part of its front missing. It can now be found in the treasury of the Cathedral of St. Michael and St. Gundula in Brussels. On the back of the cross, we can find the inscription Drama me vorte, drama made me. One can also draw the conclusion that the object itself defines the meaning of the poem which it carries. This means that the combination of the inscription and the object defines the borders of the maker and the public to which the object and the poem serve.
Besides these two crosses, the researchers Seppe, Manderick and Thijs Vollers have also discovered in Italy Vercelli this book, the Vercelli book, and the majority of the lines that we have nowadays from the Dream of the Rood are to be found in this book.
The Vercelli book is a 10th century anthology of Old English poems housed in the Vercelli Cathedral Library in Italy. It contains a collection of religious and secular poems, including the Dream of the Rood, believed to be the oldest surviving example of English poetry. The book contains a version of the Dream of the Rood that consists well over 156 lines of prose.
The Vercelli book is an important source of Old English literature and provides insight into the beliefs and culture of the Anglo-Saxons. It is believed to have been compiled in the 10th century, likely in England. It is unclear how it came to be in the Vercelli Cathedral Library in Italy, but it is believed to have been taken there during the Norman conquest of England in 1066.
The three written or inscribed versions of the Dream of the Rood do not force us to choose which one is real. Moreover, analysing all three versions provides us with an insight that there often isn't a real, original or best version. The Dream of the Rood found on stone, metal or paper all have their own uniquenesses and similarities, and just those differences give us very distinctive interpretations, meaning, in turn, that the collective interpretation of the poem becomes so much greater after looking at each version.
Furthermore, when looking at the idea of the emergent text from René Welleck, we can see that the Dream of the Rood is a primary example of multiplicity. The Dream of the Rood, and more broader, every poem needn't be limited by time, space or even medium. The poem can be everywhere, like in Scotland or Vercelli, but at the same time it can be nowhere, meaning that there is no original best poem. Ultimately, it is this multiplicity in its many forms that gave the Dream of the Rood a life in the past, and it's through that same multiplicity we can understand the poem's meaning and history today.
Though the poem takes different shapes on metal, parchment and stone, it is a significant part of the experience of each object. This was Morgane Verbrugge for CucumberTV, and I'll see you next Thursday.